HOA Karen set up her fancy camping chair right in the middle of my field. When I asked her to leave, she started screaming and called 911, yelling, "Help! There's a thug threatening and harassing me. Come quickly." Little did she know she was messing with the county sheriff himself. Before we start the story, please comment down from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe. My name is John Taylor, and for the past 8 years I've served as the sheriff of Pine Creek County. Most folks around here know me, respect the badge, and understand that I'm just doing my job. When I'm not wearing my uniform, I'm just a regular guy who loves his little piece of heaven, a 40-acre farm that's been in my family for 3 generations. My farm sits on the edge of town, right next to Sunny Meadows, the newest and fanciest neighborhood in Pine Creek. These houses cost more than I'll make in 10 years, with their perfect green lawns, fancy stone driveways, and swimming pools bigger than my first apartment. I never had any problems with the people living there until they formed their homeowners association 6 months ago. That's when I met Patricia Wilson, but everyone in town now calls her HOA Karen behind her back. She moved here from the big city, always wears clothes that look like they belong in a fashion magazine, and talks to people like she's the queen and we're all her servants. As soon as she became president of the HOA, trouble started. First, she went after old Mrs. Jenkins, who lives on the edge of Sunny Meadows, because her garden gnomes were not aesthetically compliant with neighborhood standards. Mrs. Jenkins is 82 years old and has had those same gnomes for 30 years. Then Patricia targeted the Johnson family because they painted their mailbox dark blue instead of the approved Sunny Meadows navy blue. I didn't even know there was a difference, but apparently, it was enough for her to issue a $150 fine. I stayed out of these problems. Not my business how they run their neighborhood as long as no laws are broken. But yesterday, everything changed when Patricia decided that the boundaries of her authority extended beyond Sunny Meadows and onto my farm. It started on Saturday morning. I was in my barn fixing some equipment when I heard a car drive up my gravel road. Through the open barn door, I saw a shiny white SUV park right in the middle of my driveway. Out stepped Patricia, wearing white pants, a pink blouse, and shoes that definitely weren't made for walking on a farm. I walked out, wiping my hands on an old rag. "Morning," I said. "Can I help you with something?" Patricia looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. She didn't know I was the sheriff since I was wearing old jeans and a faded t-shirt with tractor grease on it. "Are you the owner of this?" She paused, looking around with her nose wrinkled. "Property?" "Yes, ma'am," I said, trying to be polite. "This farm has been in my family for over 70 years. I'm John Taylor." She didn't offer to shake my outstretched hand. Instead, she pulled out a folder from her designer purse. "Mr. Taylor, I'm Patricia Wilson, president of the Sunny Meadows Homeowners Association. I'm here about several serious violations that are affecting our community." I raised my eyebrows. "Violations? Ma'am, my farm isn't part of Sunny Meadows. Your HOA rules don't apply here." She gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Perhaps I wasn't clear. Your farm borders our development, and several of your activities are affecting our property values and quality of life." "What activities?" I asked, genuinely confused. She opened her folder and began reading from a list. "Your roosters crow before 8 a.m., disrupting our residents' sleep. Your tractor creates dust that blows into our community. That old red barn is an eyesore visible from 6 premium lots. And worst of all, you have livestock that creates unpleasant odors that reach our homes when the wind blows from the east." I took a deep breath. "Mrs. Wilson, this is a working farm. Farms have animals, and animals make noise and, yes, sometimes smells. As for my barn, it was just repainted last summer. Well, it should be a more suitable color. Perhaps beige or sage green to blend with the natural environment," she said as if explaining something to a child. "The Sunny Meadows Architectural Committee has prepared these guidelines for appropriate exterior color schemes." She tried to hand me some papers from her folder. I didn't take them. "Mrs. Wilson, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My farm is not part of your neighborhood. I don't have to follow your rules." Her smile disappeared. "Mr. Taylor, we're trying to create a premium living experience. Your farm is reducing property values for our residents. Surely you can understand our concern. I understand you bought houses next to a farm that's been here for decades, and now you're complaining about farm things happening on a farm," I said, my patience wearing thin. "That doesn't make much sense to me." "Well," she said, closing her folder with a snap, "if you won't cooperate voluntarily, the HOA board will have to consider other measures. We have considerable influence in this county." What she didn't know was exactly how well I knew about county matters. I decided not to mention my job just yet. Mrs. Wilson, this is private property. You've said your piece and now I'm asking you to leave. This conversation isn't finished, she said, getting back into her SUV. Yes it is, I replied. Have a nice day. As she drove away, I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, Sunday, I woke up early as usual to feed my animals. As I walked toward the chicken coop, I noticed something strange in my east field, the one closest to Sunny Meadows. There was a car parked there, right in the middle of my alfalfa, and next to it was what looked like a small tent and a table with chairs. I rubbed my eyes thinking I was seeing things. But no, someone had actually set up camp on my land without permission. I changed direction and started walking toward this bizarre setup. As I got closer, I couldn't believe my eyes. Patricia Wilson was sitting in a fancy camping chair, drinking coffee from a thermos. She had a small folding table set up with papers spread across it, and one of those pop-up canopy tents for shade. Her white SUV was parked right on my alfalfa crop, crushing plants I'd spent months growing. Mrs. Wilson, I called out as I approached. What are you doing on my property? She looked up calmly. Good morning, Mr. Taylor. I'm conducting an environmental impact study. What? I stopped a few feet from her makeshift office. An environmental impact study, she repeated slowly as if I might not understand big words. The HOA has concerns about potential water contamination, soil erosion, and air quality issues originating from your farm. We need documentation before we file our complaint with the county environmental office. Let me get this straight, I said, trying to keep my voice level. You've driven onto my private property without permission, set up some kind of camp, and are now threatening to file complaints based on studies you're not qualified to conduct? I have a degree in interior design, she said, lifting her chin. I understand environmental aesthetics perfectly well. I sighed deeply. Mrs. Wilson, you are trespassing. Please pack up your things and leave immediately. She took a sip of her coffee. This is a public service activity. Trespassing laws don't apply when it's for the public good. Now, I've been sheriff long enough to know when someone is making up laws, and she was definitely making this up. But I decided to try reason one more time. There is no such exception to trespassing laws. You are on private property without permission. I'm asking you politely to leave. And I'm declining, she said, shuffling some papers. Our HOA lawyer assures me I have every right to document nuisances affecting our development. Your HOA lawyer is wrong and you need to leave now, I said more firmly. She looked up at me, eyes narrowed. Are you threatening me, Mr. Taylor? I'm telling you that you're breaking the law and need to leave my property immediately. That's not a threat, it's a fact. Patricia reached for her phone. I don't appreciate your tone. In fact, I feel threatened. Perhaps I should call the authorities. Please do, I said, crossing my arms. She dialed 911, still glaring at me. I stood quietly, waiting for what was about to happen. Yes, emergency? I need police assistance immediately, she said into the phone. I'm being threatened by a man on Old Mill Road, just east of Sunny Meadows. My name is Patricia Wilson, president of the Sunny Meadows HOA. I could hear the dispatcher's voice faintly but couldn't make out the words. Yes, I'm conducting an environmental study, and this man is threatening me if I don't leave, Patricia continued. He looks dangerous. She glanced at my work clothes, which admittedly had seen better days. I saw her face change as the dispatcher spoke again. What do you mean, whose property am I on? I told you I'm just east of Sunny Meadows, conducting an official HOA environmental study. More words from the dispatcher. Well, I don't know the owner's name, she lied. He's standing here threatening me. The look on her face suddenly changed from confident to confused. Sheriff Taylor's property? No, that can't be right. This is just some farmer. I smiled slightly as I watched realization dawn on her face. She looked at me with new eyes, finally seeing past the dirty jeans and work boots. You're Sheriff Taylor? She asked, her phone still at her ear. Yes, ma'am, I said. Pine Creek County Sheriff's Department, 8 years now. The color drained from her face. There's been a misunderstanding, she said quickly into the phone. I need to go. She hung up and started gathering her papers with shaking hands. Mrs. Wilson, I said calmly, trespassing is a criminal offense. So is making false reports to emergency services. I didn't know this was your property, she said, stuffing papers into her designer bag. And I felt genuinely threatened. You knew very well whose property this was. We spoke yesterday and I asked you to leave then too. As for feeling threatened, the 911 call is recorded. Making false statements to dispatchers is another offense. Her hands froze on her papers. Are you arresting me? I considered it for a moment. I certainly could. But that would mean paperwork on my day off, and honestly, seeing her face when she realized who I was felt like justice enough for now. Not today, I said finally. But you're going to pack up everything, drive carefully out of my field without damaging any more crops, and never set foot on my property again without written permission. Is that clear? Perfectly, she whispered, now frantically packing her things. And Mrs. Wilson? I added. You'll be receiving a bill for the damaged alfalfa. My neighbor Bill Thompson is a crop assessor. I'll have him take a look tomorrow. She nodded quickly, not meeting my eyes. Within 10 minutes, she had packed everything into her SUV and was slowly driving across my field toward the access road, much more carefully than when she had driven in. I thought that would be the end of it. Once again, I was wrong. Monday morning, I was in my office at the sheriff's department, going through weekend reports, when my deputy Susan knocked on the door. Sheriff, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. I looked up to see Patricia Wilson standing behind Susan, wearing a perfectly pressed pantsuit and holding another folder. Mrs. Wilson, I said, nodding to Susan that it was okay to let her in. What can I help you with today? She sat down across from my desk, looking much more composed than when she had fled my farm yesterday. Sheriff Taylor, I wanted to apologize for yesterday's misunderstanding, she began. Misunderstanding? I repeated. You trespassed on my property, refused to leave when asked, made a false 911 call, and damaged my crops. Which part was a misunderstanding? She cleared her throat. Perhaps misunderstanding isn't the right word. I was overzealous in my duties as HOA president. But I've come with a proposal that I think will resolve everything amicably. She opened her folder and pulled out a document that looked like a contract. The Sunny Meadows HOA is prepared to offer you $5,000 if you'll agree to make some minor adjustments to your farm operations. We're asking that you move your chicken coop to the west side of your property, repaint your barn in an approved color from our palette, and agree not to spread manure on days when the wind blows toward our development. I stared at her in disbelief. Mrs. Wilson, did you miss the part where I said your HOA has no authority over my farm? This isn't about authority, she said smoothly. It's about being a good neighbor. $5,000 is quite generous. It's not about money either, I replied. My farm operations are all within county regulations, which, by the way, I help enforce. I'm not changing anything because your HOA members don't like living next to a real farm. Her pleasant expression faltered. Sheriff, I hoped we could handle this like reasonable adults. But if you refuse to cooperate, the HOA is prepared to file complaints with every relevant county department, environmental, zoning, health, until something is done about your farm. Now she was threatening me in my own office. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my desk. Mrs. Wilson, let me be very clear. Your HOA bought land next to an existing farm. Your developers knew it was there when they built those houses. Every single homeowner could see my red barn, my chickens, and my fields before they purchased their properties. You don't get to move next to a farm and then complain that there's a farm next door. But our property values are not my responsibility, I finished for her. Now I have work to do. Real law enforcement work, not made-up HOA rule enforcement. She stood up, clutching her folder. This isn't over, Sheriff Taylor. Actually, it is, I said firmly. And Mrs. Wilson? If you set foot on my property again without permission, I will have you arrested for trespassing. I won't be so lenient next time. She left without another word, her high heels clicking angrily down the hallway. My deputy Susan poked her head in after Patricia had gone. Everything okay, Sheriff? Just fine, I sighed. HOA trouble. Susan smiled sympathetically. My sister lives in Sunny Meadows. Says that woman has the whole neighborhood terrified of getting violation notices. Well, her authority stops at the neighborhood boundaries, I said. She's about to learn that the hard way. The next few weeks were quiet. I sent Patricia a bill for $350 for the damaged alfalfa, which she paid promptly with a check from the HOA account, not her personal funds. I thought perhaps she had finally accepted reality. Then came the Pine Creek County Council meeting. As sheriff, I attend these monthly to give updates on law enforcement activities. I was sitting at the front of the room in my uniform when Patricia walked in with at least 20 people wearing matching Protect Sunny Meadows t-shirts. When the public comment period began, Patricia was the first to the microphone. My name is Patricia Wilson, president of the Sunny Meadows Homeowners Association. We're here tonight because our beautiful community is being negatively impacted by an adjacent farm that refuses to modernize its operations. Murmurs spread through the room. Most of the council members were either farmers themselves or came from farming families. This was rural county after all. The owner of this farm allows roosters to crow at dawn, spreads manure that smells terrible, and has an unsightly barn that reduces our property values. We've tried to resolve this amicably, but the owner refuses to cooperate. County Council President Bill Johnson, whose family had farmed in Pine Creek for 5 generations, looked skeptical. "Which farm are you referring to, Mrs. Wilson?" "The Taylor Farm on Old Mill Road," she said confidently. All eyes in the room turned to me. I kept my expression neutral. "Sheriff Taylor's farm?" Bill asked, eyebrows raised. "Yes," Patricia confirmed. "We understand he's a public servant, which is why his refusal to address these community concerns is particularly disappointing." Bill leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Wilson, how long have you lived in Pine Creek County?" "I moved here 8 months ago," she said. "And you're aware that Pine Creek County was founded by farmers? That our county seal literally has a tractor on it?" "History is one thing," she replied. "Progress is another. Sunny Meadows represents the future of this county, upscale homes bringing in tax revenue and growth." One of the other council members, Mary Simmons, spoke up. "Mrs. Wilson, are you familiar with our right to farm ordinance?" Patricia looked confused. "Our what?" "Our right to farm ordinance," Mary repeated. "Passed in 1987. It specifically protects existing agricultural operations from nuisance complaints when residential developments are built near them later. In other words, if you build houses next to an existing farm, the farm has the right to continue operating as it always has." "But surely there are limits," Patricia protested. "When it affects quality of life." "The ordinance is quite clear," Mary interrupted. "As long as the farm follows standard agricultural practices and obeys environmental regulations, which I'm sure our sheriff does, it's protected." Patricia looked around the room, clearly not getting the support she expected. "But what about our property values? Our homeowners were promised pristine views and a peaceful environment." Bill Johnson shook his head. "Ma'am, it sounds like your beef is with your developers, not Sheriff Taylor. They're the ones who made promises about land they didn't control." The meeting continued, but it was clear the county council had no interest in restricting my farm operations. As Patricia and her supporters left, I could see the anger on her face. This still wasn't over. 2 days later, I was having coffee at Maggie's Diner when Tom Wilson, the editor of our small local newspaper, slid into the booth across from me. "Morning, Sheriff. Mind if I ask you about this HOA situation? Hearing a lot of talk around town." I sighed. "What do you want to know, Tom? Is it true the Sunny Meadows HOA president trespassed on your land and then called 911 on you? News travels fast in small towns." "Something like that," I admitted. Tom grinned. "And the dispatcher told her she was calling about the sheriff's property?" I couldn't help smiling. "You should ask Rita down at Dispatch. She tells it better than I do." "Already did," Tom chuckled. "She said the lady nearly had a heart attack when she realized who you were. Mind if I run the story? People are talking anyway, might as well get the facts straight." I thought about it for a moment. "Just stick to the facts, Tom. No need to make it personal." "Will do," he promised, finishing his coffee. "By the way, there's a rumor the HOA is trying to get the zoning board to reclassify your land. Might want to look into that." After Tom left, I called Linda down at the county clerk's office. Sure enough, the Sunny Meadows HOA had filed a petition to have the land around their development rezoned from agricultural to residential. That would include my farm. This was getting serious now. If they succeeded, my farm could eventually be forced to shut down. I might be the sheriff, but I still had to follow the law like everyone else. I spent the next week gathering support. I talked to neighboring farmers, longtime residents, and business owners who depended on local agriculture. By the time the zoning board meeting came around, half the county seemed ready to attend. The meeting room was packed. Patricia and her HOA members sat on one side, while farmers and their supporters filled the rest of the space. When Patricia presented her petition, she carefully avoided mentioning my farm specifically, instead talking about modernizing land use and planning for growth. When my turn came to speak, I left my sheriff's badge at home. This wasn't about my job, it was about my family's legacy. My great-grandfather started farming this land in 1934. I began. He survived the Dust Bowl, economic depression, and 2 wars while keeping this farm productive. My grandfather expanded it during the 50s and 60s. My father modernized our practices in the 80s and 90s, and now I'm the fourth generation working this same land. I looked around the room at the faces of people I'd known my whole life. Pine Creek has always been a farming community. Yes, we're growing, and yes, we welcome new neighbors. But not at the expense of what made this county special in the first place. If we start rezoning farmland because new housing developments don't like the sights and sounds of agriculture, where does it stop? How many generations of family farms are we willing to sacrifice? The zoning board voted unanimously to reject the rezoning petition. Patricia stormed out without speaking to anyone. The next day, Tom's article ran in the Pine Creek Gazette. The headline read, HOA Karen camps on sheriff's land, calls 911 on him. Sunny Meadows president gets farming lesson from county officials. I winced at the Karen reference, but the article itself was factual, describing how Patricia had trespassed, called 911, and then tried various official channels to force changes to my farm. It ended with a quote from Bill Johnson. In Pine Creek County, we respect our agricultural heritage and the hard-working farmers who feed America. New developments are welcome, but they need to respect what was here before them. I thought for sure this would be the end of it. Patricia had been defeated at every turn. Surely she would give up now. A week later, my doorbell rang early Sunday morning. When I opened the door, I was shocked to find Patricia standing there. But this time she wasn't wearing designer clothes. She had on jeans, a simple blouse, and practical shoes. And she looked different. Humbled maybe. "Sheriff Taylor," she said quietly, "may I speak with you for a moment?" I hesitated, then stepped back to let her in. She followed me to the kitchen, where I offered her coffee. She accepted with a small, "Thank you." "I owe you an apology," she said after taking a sip. "A real one this time." I waited, not making it easy for her. "I was wrong. About everything." She looked down at her cup. "When I moved here and got elected HOA president, I thought I was protecting people's investments. I didn't understand that I was attacking a way of life that's been here for generations." "What changed your mind?" I asked. "My son," she admitted. "He's 12. After that article came out with that nickname, kids at school started teasing him about his Karen mom. He came home crying, asking why I was trying to shut down farms when his science teacher had just taught them how important local agriculture is." She looked up at me, and I could see genuine regret in her eyes. "I never thought about it that way. I was so focused on property values and aesthetics that I forgot about the actual value of what you do here." "It's not just me," I said. "Pine Creek has dozens of family farms. None of us are getting rich, but we're feeding people and preserving a way of life that means something." She nodded. "My son asked if we could visit a working farm to understand better. I was wondering, would you be willing to show him around sometime? The right way, with permission, not?" She gave a small embarrassed smile. "Not by camping in your field and calling 911. I couldn't help but laugh. "I think I could arrange that." Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. Patricia resigned as HOA president and started a community education program about local agriculture. She brought school groups to visit farms, with permission, organized a farmers market in the Sunny Meadows Community Center, and even started a small garden plot where neighborhood kids could grow vegetables. The new HOA board, led by a retired farmer who had downsized to a Sunny Meadows home, created more reasonable rules and focused on building bridges with the surrounding community rather than walls. As for me, I kept being the sheriff during the week and a farmer on weekends. Patricia's son Ryan started coming by to help with chores and learn about farm life. He had a natural talent with the animals and a curiosity about everything from soil health to weather patterns. 6 months after our early morning confrontation, I was at the county fair when Tom from the newspaper approached me with a grin. "Have you seen the Sunny Meadows booth?" he asked. I shook my head. "You might want to check it out," he said mysteriously. Curious, I wandered over to find Patricia and several Sunny Meadows residents giving out brochures titled, "Being a Good Neighbor, Understanding and Appreciating Our Local Farms." Patricia spotted me and waved me over. "Sheriff Taylor. Just the person we wanted to see. We're organizing a farm-to-table dinner next month to raise money for the 4-H club. Would your farm be willing to contribute some produce?" "I think that could be arranged," I said, amazed at how much had changed. As I walked away, I overheard someone call her HOA Karen, and Patricia turned with a smile. "Actually, it's just Patricia now." The HOA Karen retired when she finally learned what being part of a real community means. Sometimes the best way to enforce the law isn't with handcuffs and citations. Sometimes, it's with patience standing your ground and giving people the chance to learn from their mistakes. As both a sheriff and a farmer, I found that most people, even those who start out as trespassers calling 911 on you, have the capacity to grow and change when planted in the right soil. And in Pine Creek County, we've got some of the best soil around both for growing crops and for growing understanding.